What's going on, people? Welcome to an episode of Down the Dojo with John, Mike, and Hodge. Obviously, it's a new podcast to us, a new thing we're starting up, new to YouTube and everything like that. Today, we are going to be doing a spoiler review of Billy Summers. All three of us just finished it recently. And first of all, we're going to give you a little synopsis just in case you haven't picked up the book yet and you're trying to decide whether you want to read it or not. And then straight after that, we'll be jumping into the spoiler review. Just a little bit about us first before we get into the synopsis and spoiler review. Just a little intro because this is our first video and whatnot. My name's John. Channel's primarily going to be about books, upcoming news, theories on books, and this podcast we plan to do. My favourite author personally is Andy Weir. Favourite genres being sci-fi and fantasy. Favourite sci-fi book, definitely Hail Mary. And favourite fantasy book, which I've just finished this year, would definitely be Jade City. Didn't really get into reading too much until the start of lockdown, thanks to Hodge. And then since then, I've been going at it pretty heavily since. Read a fair few books, and here we are today on the podcast.
Yeah, so I'm Hodge, and I'll just talk about why we've got started this podcast. We're just a bunch of mates who read books, so this gives us the opportunity, hopefully with other people's inputs. We mainly started our books over lockdown. There's something to do, and then our hobby just carried on. So we thought we'd reach it into this, and hopefully we get some other opinions down the way.
Yeah, so I'm Mike, and basically same thing here. Got grandfathered in by Mr. Hodge here to reading at the start of lockdown. And so far, my backlog isn't exactly very deep at the moment, but my favourite authors definitely got to be, so far anyway, John Gwynne, Brandon Sanderson, and Miss R.F. Kwang. Sorry if I butcher her name, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the most part. I mean, hope to read a lot more, and yeah, this podcast is probably going to be a little bit awkward as being our first time, but
It's definitely going to be a little bit clunky in it to begin with, but
hopefully it'll be good. Hopefully
we can only
we'll
get better.
Get better.
So
yeah,
then,
it can't get worse.
To
surely.
start it off, if I asked one of you then, if I have never read Billy Summers, what would you say to me? A non-spoiler review. What would you give me for it?
Yeah, so I mean, if you haven't read it yet, it's basically a book about a hired killer who thinks of himself as a bin man of sorts who takes out the trash, that being the bad guys. He's clearly got a conviction against them for whatever personal reasons in his life, and yeah, he just goes through his life and is a contracted killer killing these guys, and now this book is his last job. So basically, what's going to happen? Is his last job going to go well? Is it going to go terribly? I mean, you have to read and find out, but honestly, there's not really much I can say without spoiling it. Unless any of you boys got anything to add to it.
I think the only thing I would add on to that is he's got a moral compass, doesn't he? That he has to be bad for him to carry out with a killing. And being that this is a last job book, it's always going to go wrong, isn't it? There's always going to be some drama to go along with the final job.
Yeah, that's two big parts of the book.
It's almost like two stories in one, isn't
it? Yeah, I mean, slight spoilers.
It's almost 3 stories in one.
Kind of.
Many different layers to it, I think you could say. After in the build up to what's going to happen, and then beyond that, there's definitely a lot of dimensions to the book, I think you could say. As far as going without going too far to spoil it for someone.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of curveballs thrown, and I mean, for me personally, I mean, it gripped me throughout the whole thing. The way the story was changing and developing, and just to see how things were going to end up.
Overall, I think all three of us could say we'd recommend it to anyone. So if you are thinking about picking it up, then all three of us could say, definitely do it. Give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read, many thrillers so far, or any like true crime books.
Yeah, same.
But this was pretty good, and I'm excited to read some more stuff. And,
would you say it would make you want to read more Stephen King after you've read this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've really read any Stephen King, honestly. I think I've slightly delved into, I forgot the name exactly. I think it's 11/20.
Yeah, the JFK one.
Yeah, the JFK one.
Yeah.
I watched a TV show and I loved the TV show, so I was excited to get into the book, but I've never really properly got into it. But yeah,
this is so different to every other Stephen King.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's a lot different.
Personally, you've read a lot, haven't you? You've read a fair few Stephen Kings.
This is like it's so out there, it's so different. You're right. The only thing that comes close is probably the Colorado kid.
And there's
So
obviously because we ain't read it like any other Stephen King's books or other books in the multiverse. I'm sure. Well, I've heard that there's lots of like little Easter eggs and nods to other books that just completely just straight over my head, which would have been good to have known about, but can't really do nothing about that now. But
let's get into spoiler review then, I guess.
yeah, so like
Yeah,
you
let's
said,
start.
spoilers ahead. So if you haven't read it, I mean, stop watching.
Yeah, I would as well. You know, the best thing I think about this, we almost get like we get like what other people see him as, and we get like almost a how would you put it? As feeble he puts himself. But we know, like in the end story, how his act really is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. You see a lot of different layers to him, don't you? Throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, and you get different points of view. Like you get the way Alice sees him, the way kind of Bucky sees him, and the way obviously like Nick and Giorgio see him, and Hoff. They all see him in like different lights. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like Hoff is kind of like scared of him. Like, obviously he's a killer, right? And then you got like Giorgio who knows there's more to him than his dumb act, his dumb self, as he
Even
puts it.
Hoff assumes though, don't he? When he meets him in the car
Yeah,
and gives him the
Yeah, he knows
gun.
because he
the way,
says to him
the
like,
way
I
he
know
started is
you're a
putting
little bit
himself
smarter.
forward. It's integral to the story the way he puts it. That leads up to the whole thing with like the assassination and what after. He wants them to like not like overestimate him. They always see him as someone that they could do over easy, but in reality, he's got like 200 IQ. He knows
Yeah,
everything that's going on when it's going on. He sees everything.
I just love his character. He's always like 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Like he's always thinking about like, okay, so if this happens or if this happens, and as well as that, he's like not super like cocky. Like he knows stuff can go wrong. Like he messes up a few times and he beats him up. He beats himself up a little bit for it, but like he understands that like stuff goes wrong in heat of the moment. You know what I mean? There's only so much you can do.
So, what was your opinion of the build up then, the start of the book? Obviously, you've got like the slowish start with getting to know the job and whatnot, but after he's met Nick and Hoff and he's accepted the job, for me personally, I feel like the story really starts when he initially goes to Gerard Tower, then he accepts the job, and his first day turning up to write the story. That's when
Yeah.
I feel, for me personally, the story really starts, and it starts getting into it from there.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts about the story. I mean, just the whole like plot, like everything leading to the fact that he had to do this assassination and like it was his last job. He keeps bringing it up. Like this is the last job. Like it always goes wrong in the movies and in the books. Constantly talking about it, right? So like he wants to disregard coincidence. He doesn't like coincidence. Like he's pushing it away. You know what I mean? Throughout the whole story, like, oh, that's just like doesn't exist. Like it's just like I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
You
you mean
understand what I'm
like are you trying to say like all the red flags that were popping up and all like the gut feelings he had that everything was going bad? He
He
tried to
doesn't
push it to
believe
one
in bad
side.
luck. Like he doesn't believe in bad luck. He doesn't believe in God, stuff like that, right? Like he just believes that everything just happens. Like he doesn't believe everything happens for a reason. He just believes it's chance, right? Like everything's just chance. And he tries to.
He could
He's,
he, he could see himself getting not too attached to certain things. Like, he
He
yeah,
kept
knew
telling
it was
himself not
happening
to
though,
get too
didn't he?
attached to the neighborhood.
yeah. He knew it
Even
was
his
happening. And he
grass, he
kept
become
doing it.
obsessed with his grass.
Yeah, and he was like, "It's pointless.
Like
Why
when
am
he
I
knew it
obsessed
wouldn't
with this?"
matter.
Yeah,
Like he almost knew like something was going to go wrong. Like he almost because he kept reiterating to himself the last job always has problems, and then he kept noticing him doing certain things, getting too attached.
I think
So
he
every
was
time he
so
would do it, it's like,
fixed
why
on
am I
the
doing
last
this?
job and the payoff though, weren't he? That he was just trying to sort of hoping and
But
willing that it'll all go right.
I think it was just a lot
he
of
almost regretted
foreshadowing.
taking it. After like a week, he regretted it. Like before he even took care.
Yeah, as he become closer
He
to the
knew it was off.
residents of the town members and stuff, and become close with like the kids and stuff, he didn't want to like ruin his image in front of them, that was one weird thing to me, right? Like this is supposed to be 2019 that this story starts, right?
Yeah, because he
I think at the
mentions
end,
pre-COVID, then he says in
Yeah.
6 months
yeah,
the world will shut down.
and at the end as
Yeah.
well, it says 2000 July 2019 or something to June 2020 or something like that. So I'm assuming that's the length of the story. You know what I mean? But
Or how long Stephen King took to write it.
I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
don't know. But it was in Alice's point of view, I think. So I don't know. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so it's supposed to be present day, but it was just kind of like weird. Like the kids playing Monopoly and stuff. Like what kids are gonna play Monopoly in fucking 2019? You know, they're on their phones. They're playing
Yeah,
like
it's
video
iPads and
games
phones,
stuff.
isn't it?
It's like I felt like the town was like back in time. You know what I mean? Like the way he described it. I don't know if that's just him
Do you know what?
as
I
a
never
writer
really
out of
thought
touch.
about
I
that
think
until
he
you
said it was
just
like
said
a
it.
really poor neighborhood.
I really,
It's like a
Yeah,
really
but
poor
even if
neighborhood,
they're
isn't it?
poor, they're gonna have like how much is a freaking like he talks about Amazon, right? How much is an Amazon like basic pad? Like it's cheap as nuts. You know what I mean? Like it's not like going to be difficult for people to afford it.
you're right though.
And I
I
don't think they're that
thought.
poor either.
No, sorry, go on. What are you saying?
I don't think that they're
Always
really
doing that
that poor
overtime
either.
Yeah,
as
I
well. They
thought the
shouldn't be that
neighborhood
poor.
he moved into, the cover house, that was quite a wealthy neighborhood. But then
I
when
don't think
he
it was
went
like
into
wealthy, but like it was like doing okay. Like
but the
people weren't
Dalton
struggling.
Smith house was definitely on the worst side of town.
Yeah, no one
Yeah,
was
it was just a
there.
basement, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
And he
was a
lived in
three-story
just the
house.
basement.
It was a house that was converted into three different flats. But yeah, that part was completely run down. Like the station next to it had been shut down and demolished.
So not jumping on too much then, obviously we've got he starts in Gerard Tower, then he starts his life story. For me,
Yeah.
that's a part of the book I really, really enjoyed. From when he went into Gerard Tower and then everything that happened beyond then, him going home, you see him start to get in with the neighbours, he's really enjoying it, he's getting attached. And then obviously this whole time his cover was a writer, weren't it? But then he started
Yeah.
to really get into the writing his whole story because he said, didn't he, he's got nothing else to do, he might as well go for it.
Yeah, he had a bunch of hours to kill. So
I loved
why
that
not?
first part of the story. Up until the assassination, even him like finalising the Dalton Smith alias and taking out the car and Nick bringing up his when he goes to dinner with Nick and he's talking about him getting his escape and he thinks he's weird, and again that's another red flag, isn't it? That he's trying to just put to one side because he wants the payout.
Constant red
The
flag.
whole
was a
first
red
part I
flag as
loved it.
well.
But what I was gonna say earlier though, like I really like the way his alias was a writer. Like one, because obviously Stephen King is a writer, so he's got a good insight on like the mind of a writer.
Yeah.
And I've heard that he does that a lot in his other books as well. But like his protagonists are writers, which is interesting. But then also like it really gave a good opportunity for us to like delve into his mind when he starts writing the book, and like I thought that was a really good use of his alias being a writer, so we can really get to know like who he is and why he is the way he is, right? Because it's just a
Yeah,
window
that's a
straight
smooth
into his
transition.
past. Yeah, I really like that
That was like a
transition. I thought it
smooth
was really good.
transition for his child.
Yeah,
Yes, we've completely glossed over the fact his sister was stomped out by his
yeah,
stepdad.
that was crazy.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
Like
That was nuts.
his sister literally like drops cookies or whatever on the floor, and that punishment is death. Like what?
Do you know something
That's
that
insane.
Alice said? Like just jumping around quick, but it does come back to what we were talking about. I was thinking this at the time, and then it's mentioned later in the book how when Stephen King's writing Billy's perspective, he talks in a child, and then the older he gets through the book, then he evolves his writing with his age, which I really, really like that. That's like a subtle.
That was like a coincidence though, right? Because he knew that they was watching his laptop, like they cloned it so they could see what he was writing. So he didn't want to sound smart in front of them. So he purposely gave himself the voice of the kid so he could sound stupid to them
It
and
worked
keep
out
his cover.
so well.
But yeah, it just
I
added
feel like
that.
that memory had such an when he actually
Wait, hold up, you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like that he didn't write it purposely.
And we're gone.
Important part of the story.
You've gone again, Hodge. Every other word you've gone.
You hear me now?
Here we now. God.
I was just saying, innit? Like the bit he ripped where he's on it. It's the same bit again. What the fuck?
You could not write this.
Why are you doing that?
You could not write this.
I like you're
Why is
trolling.
he doing
Like
it on
turning it
Are
off.
you trolling? You're trolling.
Wait, am I getting censored?
He's off again. That's a yeah.
Every time I say child, it's cutting me out.
Oh no way. Oh
Say
no.
something
man.
and then say child.
Hot dogs, child.
Right, it worked at a time.
Did you do it?
Yeah. Go on, Hodge. What were you gonna say?
I feel like it's a
Yeah, I was
certain
saying
sound. Anyway, yeah, go.
The bit you mentioned about like childhood, anyway. She said he wrote it like a child. That childhood trauma in it. It cut me out again.
Yeah, but I pretty much got everything you said.
I get what you're saying. Like that's a big turning point in the book for him. That brings up a lot of trauma and then it affects the book going forward. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just damaged, right? He's like a really severely damaged from his trauma when he was
It's like
a
he's
child,
repressed
and
it,
the
innit?
trauma. Yeah, and the trauma in his army days as well. Like he
know
keeps
what?
dreaming about it, right? He even says he forgot about it, and now like going back into writing it, he's like remembering everything again, right? It's coming to the surface.
You reckon him getting fast tracked into the army was what he could get away with in the feeble character? Like he could see if he acted a certain way, like he would get what he wanted, like almost underestimate.
No, I don't know. I don't think so. Because when he got far, well, I don't know. He didn't really he got fast tracked in the army
The
because he
sergeant
was.
said to him usually would take months, but for you, we can get you in like 3.
No, I think it was just a time. Like he luckily.
Yeah, he
got
said
there
in the
time.
book you came at the right time, right? Because they were just on like intake or whatever. But that is a good point to bring up. Like, why does he feel the need
like
to
it's
act
not
dumber
because
than
of
he
that, though.
is?
Because Mr. Speck and it had a private word with him. Like he went into the office, had a talk with him, told him about his like childhood and stuff, and then he come back out and said, "You know what? You'll be in a couple of days." I feel like he was fast tracked for a certain reason. Like his childhood probably did play a part in it.
Maybe. But yeah, maybe because he was like you're like that guy in there. He's never killed anyone. He hasn't got the eyes of a killer or whatever, the face of a killer. But you've already done that, which I thought was a bit weird to say to him.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like from that point why they would want him in. Like they know he's gonna do a job at the end of the day, I guess. I never really thought about that, to be fair, while I was reading it. That's a good point.
They knew they could mold him. Like, I knew that he wouldn't hesitate. Like he's already proven that he won't hesitate to kill someone, right? Like so in the moment, like later on when Taco's like, "Yo, do you think you can actually kill this guy?" When whoever that guy who came and asked him to take a shot on that one guy, who was the owner of that like video game store. He was like, "I want you to kill this guy because he set up our convoy taking in food or whatever they were doing." So, and then he was acting stupid at that time, his dumb self. And Taco was like, why are you acting so dumb? And he's like, it's better that people underestimate me than think I'm like, you know.
Okay,
Why does he feel the need to do that?
48,000 law.
I don't know. I think
It's like ingrained into it.
I
It's
feel
so
like
weird.
if from my understanding, it's like if people know what you're capable of, they're going to be thinking like, if they think you're smart, right? They're going to take precautions on that, right? Like they're going to be like, okay, so I want this from him, but these are the ways that it could go like wrong, or like he might do this in turn or something like that. But if he's stupid and he doesn't really think of anything except for exactly what he's doing at the moment, then no one's going to be like, oh, he's plotting. Like no one's going to think that, right? Like they're just going to think, oh, he's just going to do the job. He's going to do whatever we ask him to do, and that's it. He's not going to do anything else. He's not going to be like trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. So
Whereas like Hoff, for example, like Billy's constantly like, yo, this guy's trouble. Like he keeps running his mouth. He keeps like talking about like all this stuff. Like he's giving too much information to Billy, to whereas Billy knows like everything about him now. So like just from the first conversation that Hoff and Billy had, Billy knows that he's failing, like he's in debt, like he's kind of pressured into this situation he's in, like he doesn't want to be a part of it. Like he knows all this information,
Yeah.
whereas when people look at Billy, they don't know nothing. They just know, oh, he's a little bit, a little bit loose in the head. Like
Every time he insulted Hoff's red picky beard like mine, I felt so insulted.
You felt
Like
attacked.
he's personally calling me. Oh, you say look like a tramp. I looked at myself in my red beard. I was like, yeah.
yeah, he really hated Hoff, which is
You went
funny.
and these are high top failings. He said that.
It just shows though what like a good judge of character he is though. Like from day one, like he just knew he didn't like him. Like there was something so off about him.
He kept. That was another thing about the story, which is a bit weird to me, though, is that he kept talking about Trump, just like, and he compared Hoff to Trump. Like,
He always does it.
he was like, no, but the way he compared Hoff to Trump as well, like, he was like, oh, he's like a little mini Trump, like wannabe Trump, but just a lot like worse. Like, he just thinks he is in that lane, but he's not.
That's got to be King talking.
And that's why he didn't like. That's why he put so much emphasis on not liking him. Was made like I feel like he's like the representative of Trump in the story, and he's just like pushing the fact that he doesn't like him on it. Which, I mean, I don't really care about politics too much, but I thought that was like a bit weird.
what
I don't really need to.
Him knowing that they didn't like none of the like Nick didn't trust Hoff, Pig didn't trust Hoff. He knew that Hoff was gonna be one that gets killed when the job's done, which how
Except
he
for
knew
Hoff.
what was gonna happen to him also.
Yeah, Hoff didn't
Yeah,
know,
like
but everyone else
Hoff
was
didn't
like,
know he was gonna get killed, but Billy knew. And that's
Yeah.
how Billy knew that they were probably gonna try and get him as well. Like all the people that are out in the open, him, Pig, Hoff, he knew that they was gonna get hit.
I think because he had the personal relationships, working relationships, with Nick before, he didn't think that Nick was going to stiff him. He kept saying it like, I don't think he's one to do that to me, but just as a precaution, like I just want to be like, I want my own getaway. I don't really want my getaway to be in the hands of other people. And it just so happened to turn out that he did actually double cross him, which, he was hoping that he wouldn't, but he did.
You know what? I've only just thought about it now. It's quite interesting. Hoff knew about the fire. But I thought originally Hoff was getting his orders off Nick, but he must have been off Clark.
That's what I was going to say earlier, right? Like, why does he know about the fire? That's what I don't get.
That had to have been to try and
He's
throw
getting orders
Billy
off
off,
multiple
surely.
people.
No, but that Clark guy didn't care about Billy. He just
He
hired
was the
Nick.
only one that knew about the fire.
Yeah, that Clark guy. All like at the end, he literally said like he just hired Nick, and then Billy was just a loose end, right? Like the
Hoff
guy
was
he
Clark's
killed.
man, but
No, but Hoff was
it's so
Hoff mentioned.
it didn't go into further explanation about it, which is weird.
He
Like,
mentioned
they've
being
left it
like
open on top.
involved in his company, right? Like he did something happened where he become an investor or something in that company, and maybe I don't know, but he's the investor, so why would they go after him if he's in debt? That's what I don't understand. I don't know. He was involved with him somehow, but how I'm not too sure.
So not jumping
Didn't really
around
go
too
far
much
with
then,
explanation.
in chronological order, we've covered the start up until the assassination, and then we've covered his flashbacks pretty much up until the next part of the story starts, right?
Yeah, I mean, also just the part obviously where he becomes like super good friends with all his neighbors, and he gets too close, and he keeps telling himself like, "I'm getting too close. Like, I shouldn't do this, but what the hell? I'm gonna do it." Like that was interesting to me.
Just in case anybody's watching this who hasn't read the book and they're just trying to hear the story, when we're talking about his childhood, we're talking about when he goes to Gerard Tower and starts to write as a cover, and he's really writing his story in the alias of someone else. You learn all of this through what he's writing about, his life story, just to clear that up.
Yeah.
And then from there, obviously everything else that we spoke about happens. So up until after the assassination, then he makes his getaway. There's a little fumble there, isn't there? But after he's done that,
so
he nearly walks out in the disguise and stuff, don't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Is it the
because he
daughter?
got close.
No, it was
Nah,
the guy
pretends to
down
be
the
the gay
office,
guy.
wasn't it? Yeah, in the
Yeah.
other office.
He dresses as him, although he's wearing different clothes on the day. Which
Colin
doesn't matter, I
someone,
guess.
weren't it? Colin Smith or whatever it was.
Colin Smith, I think so. That rings a bell. Yeah. that super flamboyant guy. That was an interesting disguise to me though. Like I would have thought that he would just try and fit in with the crowd, instead of standing out in the crowd, right? Like I guess that guy
He
was
does
really
ditch them clothes in the alleyway, doesn't
no,
he?
but
There wasn't a huge crowd though, was there? Because everyone turned up
Yeah,
late
like
and the breakfast
he
crowd were
wore that
already gone.
disguise.
yeah, I think
He
I've
wore that disguise when he was in the offices, but when he got to the alleyway where he took them off to get away, like his normal stuff.
no, but he used it to get past the
Yeah,
van,
yeah. He
right?
he was on the street, weren't he? And then he went in, and then he was fussing because he couldn't find his laptop, and then he nearly walked out in that disguise. But he remembered
Yeah,
and
he
went
had to
back and
throw it
ditched
off.
it.
Yeah.
But the
He was
reason that there was
upset.
no one on the street and it wasn't busy though was because because he turned up late. Who was it? Who was he trying to assassinate? Joel someone. I forget the name. He turned up late, so the whole breakfast crowd for when it was planned and everything was already gone, weren't it? So there wasn't a big like
Yeah,
kerfuffle on the road.
Yeah, but they still like came out of the office and stuff. So there was still a group of people that was like with him, and
Mm.
he like spoke in like a flamboyant voice, right, to say like, "Oh no, what's happening?" like to that person next to him, so that the people
I
like
think
might overhear them, like
Yes, do you know what?
in the
You're completely
van.
right because it mentions he was on the stairs and there was a hold up and that, weren't it? Getting out of the building.
Yeah, he had to wait for a bunch of people to get out, which
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
like
you're
getting a bit
right,
nervous
right.
because he didn't want the people behind him to get like to catch up and like maybe see that he was like disguised for some reason.
Dave, is that you? Why are you wearing that?
Yeah, Dave, that's interesting clothes.
So after that,
But
then personally for me, the last thing, obviously, like he gets away, he gets back to the Dalton Smith apartment, he starts living out his life under his alias Dalton Smith. Um, I didn't see the whole curveball with Alice happening at all. Just do you want to give just a brief little?
well, before that part though, I want to say about the laptop, right? So like he really wants to find that laptop, like it's a really big thing for him, right? He doesn't want to lose it, but then he tells himself when he thinks he's lost it, he tells himself, "Stupid, it's just a laptop. Like he can get another one, it's fine." But then he's like, "No, I really like want it, because it's his lucky charm, right?" Like throughout the story, and him, I don't know if he. When did he talk about the fun house? Was it after Alice or before? It was after.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
he's
after.
writing it while he's with her, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, that's just like that's his like lucky charm, right? He doesn't want to lose that. And I mean, without going too far off in the weeds, like every time he has his lucky charms, he always like comes out okay, right? And it's the 1 point, the 2 points in the story, he loses his lucky charms, everything goes wrong, both times.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because he even says later on in the book that his laptop's like an old friend, doesn't he? So he's really attached.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what the reason why is lucky to him, but I don't know what. Maybe because it's just come with him through so many jobs. I'm not sure, but um, yeah, the shoe and the funhouse part. He lost the shoe, and then they went into the funhouse, and then everything went tits up. And then the same thing with at the end, right? He has the lucky drawing that he got from the girl next door in the original house that he lived in. He lost that. He left it in the car in Nick's mansion, and then he ended up, dying and everything at the end.
talk about the Alice thing,
Yeah,
like how the thing happened. Like the part with Alice is almost like a completely different story, man. Like, the curveball of that, he's got away from everything now. Like he's got his covers, he's got his life straight. Like he knows what he's gonna do. His plan set out, and suddenly he just hears like a van just scur up on his road. Like he sees three men with like almost like a dead body. He looks like. So he keeps watching and watching and sees that they've drove off. Like this girl just like lying messed up on the side of the thing. So he has to run up all the way to all the way through his basement apartment to the second story, all outside in the rain to grab this like girl. Like he doesn't know she's dead, doesn't know what's wrong with her, and he has to take her back into his house. But she's all like she's been like raped and drugged. Like it's a pretty fucked up scene. Like it's pretty weird. Like eventually when he gets her in, it's like the start of like this whole new book. Like eventually the relationship is just like it's more important than the whole of the rest of the book. You'll see at the end like the meaning between their relationship and yeah.
yeah, it really develops throughout the story. Like from the first part where he literally grabs her off the street and brings her into his home, which is, like you said, a complete curveball. As he's laying low, away, like trying to wait for everything to die down, the police to stop searching for him, the van, Nick's guys, to stop searching for him. He just gets thrown in this situation, and he has to help. Like,
yeah.
he's got like a weird like conflict, right? Like, he wants to be a good Samaritan, but at the same time, he knows that he can't really be seen
You know what
outside.
it is as well? There's like he sees his sister so much in that situation. Like he couldn't help her then; he was too scared to help her. But now,
Yeah.
like he's been through so much, and he almost sees like a chance to save his sister in a sense. Obviously, it's
Yeah, I see that. I think he relates that situation a lot to it's a man committing violence against a helpless woman, isn't it?
Yeah.
King emphasizes it a lot. Like he brings it up in the story. Like she even asks a few times, "Did you do it?" 'Cause I
Repeatedly.
thought, like, you
Yeah.
helping your sister. Yeah. Like
But yeah, go on.
I think he almost like the sacrifice in the end. Like I don't want to get too early, but the sacrifice in his end is almost for his sister as well. Because if remember when he written the story, like he helped at the thing, but in reality, he locked himself in a room away from the guy that killed his sister. I think
Yeah.
he sees this as a redemption as well, like the sacrifice.
Yeah, so in the book he writes that he just like he tackled his stepdad.
Yeah.
We
And then he
completely
runs to the
overlooked that
room.
part.
Well,
We
no,
didn't
it wasn't really
explain that
relevant
at
though.
all.
I don't think it was.
That is part of it, though.
It
But now
comes
it's
up in
relevant,
this.
yeah. So he lied about it in the book, obviously, just to, I don't know, he just felt bad about that, I guess, that he just ran away and didn't help his sister. And his mum told him, like, you gotta look after your sister. And he's completely failed at the only job that he ever had, right? So,
When the guy come home, when his stepdad come home and was drunk and pissed off that the cookies were burnt, he started to stamp on his sister. He hit her, stamped on her, and instead of helping, Billy ran away, and the stepdad chased Billy. Billy found the stepdad's gun in his room, and as the stepdad busted into the room, Billy shot him, which is what we were talking about earlier when we were speaking about he's already killed someone, because he had already killed his stepdad, and then from there, obviously he got passed into care and then the story developed.
You know what was interesting when he introduced Alice? I knew like some John Wick type of happen, but I didn't expect it to involve a mixer.
He mentions John Wick in there, doesn't he? But
yeah, he
like,
mentions watching a film.
I think it was a big
John Wick.
inspiration. You know, Stephen watched that before he wrote this book, and it was a big inspiration for him.
He also kept mentioning Blacklist as well. Like, they watched like 9 episodes of Blacklist, which I've seen advertised on Netflix, but I haven't watched it. But I think it's about like a guy who is like a detective or something. I don't know what relation that would have with the story, but it was just interesting. They kept mentioning Blacklist. I don't know if that's just because he watched that recently. He also mentioned Ozark as well, which is pretty good.
I love when he meets Alice. You see like another side to him, don't you? Like the loving care, because I think you can see like from when she comes into the story, even later on, you see like a softer side of him.
I think you see that
Being what
already,
you
though.
said with him seeing like his sister, but he says later on in the book that he's fell in love with her. Like he starts to fall in love with her throughout the book, and you never really heard of that before, have you? Like he never had a wife before, he never had anything.
Yeah, but at the beginning of the story, right, when he's getting to know his neighbors and stuff, he becomes like close to the kids, right? He plays Monopoly with them every week.
Yeah, you're
even though
right.
he
You're
knows
right.
it's not
Yeah,
a good
definitely.
idea.
Definitely,
He
I agree.
wins. He wins Shanice the flamingo, even though he's like, this is a terrible idea, but he does it for her anyway because she really wants it, right? Like, so we've seen his compassionate side before, so we know he's compassionate. We know he only kills bad guys. We know that he's messed up from the war and his childhood traumas.
So moving on
yeah.
from where we are now, then Alice has
Well,
come into the picture.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when that Alice seems a bit weird. I don't know, like he tried to make it comical, right? Like with his boxes falling down and like
It started to get borderline creepy for me listening to that. It really did.
It really did. When he started getting like talking about details, like getting her undressed and stuff, like
Cuts on her labia. Ugh.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah.
When he literally went like into real detail about her, which was I mean,
about
obviously,
the whole rape situation, he went into a lot of detail.
yeah, I mean, obviously, like he kind of wants to get through like the the idea that rape is like terrible on it, which obviously it is. I mean, I don't think any of us disagree with that, but I don't know. It was super uncomfortable, and yeah, it was a strange scene that I was not expecting. That's for sure.
I was so glad. Well, I wanted him to kill the people. What he done to them was equally as bad.
I was happy that he didn't kill him.
He
I
didn't
was
do
like
too much,
rooting.
though, did he? Like the
Yeah,
one.
he just give him a quick beating. I was hoping he killed them, man. They deserved it.
I definitely thought he was going to, because not jumping around in again too much. From when he knew, obviously Alice opened up to him about who raped her. She talked him through what she could remember, and then he went out and sought revenge, didn't he, on the
Yeah.
3 people that had raped her. And then let's go into a bit more detail about what happens when he gets there. Then
Yeah, so like he obviously he gets the Melania Trump mask, right? Which is another dig at Trump, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
To break in, and he's wearing a blonde wig, which I don't know if that was a dig at Trump, but obviously Trump has like a blonde toupee, right?
Yeah.
And he keeps talking about his blonde wigs. I don't know if that was another like nod to that or not, but yeah. So he breaks in, he gets a hand mixer, brings a hand mixer, brings some, what was it, oven spray? Was that what it was?
He I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and he
He beats
finds
them
the
up first. So like the one friend comes in, he beats that guy up to get some answers. Like who owned the van? And
someone
then
was already there, right?
Shoots him in the
The la-
ankle.
the
Donovan
lanky
come in
guy was
second
already
or
there.
third.
Yeah, because the oven cleans the first guy in the eyes, don't
Yeah,
he?
yeah, yeah.
He's
So
blind, he
he's
ties him up. The second guy comes in, Donovan, and then
Which is the
Trip
main
Donovan, yeah, the
perpetrator.
main guy who raped, yeah.
the main protagonist of just a little bit of backstory to that.
Antagonist, not protagonist.
That's my bad, antagonist. Trip Donovan was going out with Alice. He asked her out,
Yeah.
and he's obviously like predatory, and that might not have been the first one he done. There was no backstory on that,
Yeah, he's a
but
piece of shit.
he
man,
was very,
100%.
very predatory, and he obviously
Yeah.
had that in mind.
Bro, they
Because
had a sex van. His friend had a sex van. like,
him
what
and
the hell?
his friends. So he's drugged Alice, and then he's taken her back to his flat where Billy now is hurting him.
No, they was already in the flat. So he invites her to the flat, right? And then he gives her a drink. And she's like, I haven't really drunk before. And he's like, oh, just drink it. And then he gives her another drink or whatever. And he's obviously roofied the drink, right? And she's like feeling weird. And she's just thinking that, oh, it's just because I've never drunk before. So I feel weird. But no, he drugged her.
I remember reading that because he gives her the one drink initially, don't he? And then she's like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. And then he says to her, he makes a point of saying, why not have a gin and tonic? And then as soon as he says that, his friends open the door and say, did someone say gin and tonic? So it's almost like that's a code word for, now I've drugged her, let's do what we're going to do.
But to me, that's just like, I mean, I know it's just a story, right? But it's like, how do 3 people come together and say, you know what, let's all hold down this girl and rape this girl? Like, how does no one in that situation say, yo, guys, this is a bit fucked up, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know Trip's like the main guy, and like they're kind of following him, and he's obviously rich, right? He's got rich parents. That he's kind
Everyone's
of
a
like the
part of it,
leader,
though.
but everyone just like, even that guy knows he fucked up, right? But he still jizzed
He
on her
deserved more than
chest,
a mixture of the
jizzed
arts,
on her
man.
stomach. So
That
I'm just
whole
like, what's-
part of the story, even from like when he was talking about what happened with Trip and the whole where he shoves a hand mixer up his ass and takes pictures of it as like revenge. From that all the way back to when he was detailing her injuries, that was a proper intense part of the story. Like he's put in so much detail about that, and so much. It was so graphic, wasn't it? Everything.
I thought that was a good part though, because obviously after he's committed the crime, right? After he's finished his job and killed the guy, he's obviously going to be in a period of like laying low, so not much can really happen at that point, right? Like, what can happen? He's just chilling. He continues writing his book or whatever, but having this like intense, like kind of revenge plot, like there at that point, kind of helped the pacing. I feel like become a lot better, right? Otherwise, if that part wasn't in there, I feel like it would have just been a lot of lounging around doing like nothing and just the story not really progressing. But instead, it kind of plays like
Well, you'd expect
part
some
in progressing
backlash, wouldn't
Alice's.
you, from either the police or the people that have hired him to
What? On what?
do the hit. Like I'm saying, in like if you was just trying to guess how that story would go, the last thing you would guess after the hit and he's laying low is for Alice to be dumped outside of his house, because obviously
Yeah.
he has to get her in,
Yeah.
because if the police come there and start asking questions,
Right.
they know who he is, because they've obviously done research into where the shot come from. So they know, so he has to get her. He's got no other choice. It's either that or leave. And he can't leave because there's roadblocks all over the city. So that was a really good part of the book, in the sense that that is the last thing I expected to happen at all. Didn't expect that at all.
But there was another point there as well. Like, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but like when he's going to get supplies for Alice, right? And he goes to the store across the street and the supermarket. And then before he goes in the supermarket, or when he leaves, I can't remember which one it is, he sees those two shady guys, right? And he's like, okay, these guys are going to break into this store. So, like, should I help?
Yeah.
Should I be a good Samaritan and help? Because there was only a woman, like one woman. There's not really security there or anything. But he doesn't want to risk calling the police. And because he doesn't want to burn his phone, right? The only phone he's got on him is a Dalton Smith phone, which
Which
he
is
wants to
like,
keep clean.
so clean, like all his cards and everything.
Yeah. So he knowingly, like, we know his moral compass is like he doesn't like people who look the other way. He doesn't like people who allow bad things to happen. He doesn't like bad people. Yet he allows this woman to get like beaten. She goes to the hospital, right? And everything, right? Like, he checks the news the next day because his conscious is like feeling bad about it, right? So that was interesting to me, that even though he constantly talks about bad people and people being good Samaritans and stuff, like, he just knowingly let this woman potentially die, right? Like, if everything went terribly wrong, and he just walked away and just hoped for the best.
Yeah, because I think in that part of the book he's showing restraint, any against, like, I know if I did intervene now. Yeah, well, to be fair, he said, didn't he, that that's a good way to get yourself killed. Like, what a dumb way to die, just a kid randomly shooting you. With everything
Yeah, but
he's
he could
gone
have
through, like
he could have
says
tried
that.
doing something, like, you know what I mean? But he didn't do anything. But what I'm saying is, it's not. But he does way more dumb stuff, like, later on. Like, he does really dumb stuff to help people out, right? Like the woman, for
It's like he
example.
almost doesn't care
In
in
the
the end,
yeah,
because he knows what the plan is with Alice and stuff. Like,
like, for example,
think it's
I know I'm jumping around again, but like in Nick's mansion, right? The maid comes, and instead of killing the maid or whatever, he trusts that the maid is not gonna like shout or make a scene, and he like, before she drops her stuff, he holds it up and he's like, leave. Like, he took a risk. He takes risks about being a good person there, but he doesn't do it in that situation.
So
So
I
from
think
where we are,
that highlights how he sees Alice as his sister.
yeah, I'm guessing that just,
How
yeah,
he
maybe
took a
you're right.
certain risk for that.
His priority is Alice, not this random woman in a shop.
He's on his John Wick type of ish. He's ready for any beef.
so
Yeah,
from where we are now, then
so we're
we
at the
have
point where he's
covered.
just
He's done the Donovan.
got revenge.
Yeah, he's got revenge on behalf of Alison.
And now
From
they gotta skip
then,
town.
he starts planning
We
his
go to
escape,
Bucky's.
but he doesn't plan to take Alice with him, does he?
No, he
So
does.
he
Oh
No,
goes
he
no, wait,
all the
doesn't.
she
way
wants to
to
come.
No, he doesn't.
he
She
goes-
asks him, "Please take me with you."
Yeah, because she doesn't want to go back to her life yet.
he's not ready yet.
She's still bruised up and
Yeah.
having panic attacks and stuff.
And once the landlord of the place comes to see him, he's not sure whether, because that whole part of that dialogue there is a bit shady, where you don't know whether he suspected anything. You don't know
Yeah.
whether he would have called the police or done anything. Obviously, he didn't,
yeah,
because
his
there was no
landlord
more about
comes,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
After that, he left to go Bucky's pretty quick, and that's when like they planned the whole revenge on Nick and stuff.
And took
for her
Alice
to go a
with him.
separate
Yeah,
way
yeah. But
after.
because we completely forgot to mention the hit was for 2 million, weren't it? And he got paid
Yeah.
500,000 up front, and he was still owed 1.5 million. But because they planned to have him killed after the hit was done, they never planned on paying him it. So
Yeah.
after he survived, his contact that hooked up the hit, he was supposed to get paid through him, weren't he? But he never got paid the money. So he decided to go after revenge because he was pissed off that he never got paid his money he was due.
And he also thought like he knew Hoffa's Then he thought Pig was killed, but he was just on a they called it a fat farm,
He
so
was on
that
an
made it look
island in
sus.
Brazil. Yeah.
He needed that liver transplant because he's
Yeah.
He's getting
severely
that summer
obese.
bod down in Brazil.
Yeah, no, yeah, because he had a fucked up liver, didn't he? So yeah, he was gonna
Yeah,
die on
he's
the
a-
operating
he's
table.
a big
So
boy.
he had to lose the weight, otherwise he would 100% be dead.
There was no choice.
But that made it even more suspicious.
As soon as they got to Bucky's though, and that like you've got the whole him, well, he used Bucky as a sort of connect in between, didn't he? And he
Yeah,
was calling them, they
he was
wouldn't
the
answer. And then Bucky
Well,
was like his inside man, getting him information on where they were, weren't he?
yeah, but
that's
before
when
that, I
we
mean, we're missing like the whole. So he writes in his story right again about that. I thought who was it? The guy who had his legs blown off, and they sung the song like, "If you
Yeah, it
better."
was like his
What was it?
commander, weren't like the
was
leader
it
of his
Jack
platoon.
Caps? Was it someone Caps? I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
think so. I think that's
Yeah.
right.
Because then Jack Caps is the one who got him involved in assassinating because he was part of like
Yeah, he got hooked on
Italian
dope,
family
didn't
was in
he?
the
Yeah.
mafia.
He got hooked on dope,
Yeah,
and then he's like Italian cousin or whatever he is. Like,
Jack Caps and I think Joe Caps was the one who arranged this
yeah,
for like,
yeah, yeah.
this scumbag who beats up women.
Yeah. And then when but like he obviously was singing the song and like shared it with Alice and like helped her overcome her like panic attacks, and he was always there for her, right? Like every time she had a panic attack, he was there, like helping her
The wet
every
cloth.
step of the way. Like he did literally everything for her, right? Like he went out and got her everything she needed and everything. So she really started to become attached to him at that point. And throughout them like their journey together, sharing these motels to get to Bucky and his place in the mountains, like they shared a lot, and he really helped her out, so she become like super attached to him. But he was trying to keep his distance, right? Because he saw her as his
Yeah.
sister, but
He knew
she
she was
saw
the
him as someone she loved, right? Like she wanted him, right? But obviously the situation, her just being raped and all, like was never. She wasn't ready for that anything.
Yeah, because after they get to wait, is that the part where she offers to beat him off? Because she gets
No,
real
that was
close.
later on.
She
Like
gets real close.
no, but she even says then at that point, right? Like, I'm not ready for anything else, but I can help you out. Like, I'm happy to help you out. But he's like, well, no, don't do that. But
And then
like,
he goes and has a power
you
wank in the bathroom.
but like that whole situation is like just showing that like she's becoming super attached to him and she's falling in love with him because he's there for her in her like most time of need when her family aren't there for him. Like, no one's there for her. Like, everyone has been bad to her, right? Like her family, the guy she met, like everyone is just like she just hates everyone, right? But this one guy is like always there and helping her through this terrible situation. So yeah, she falls in love. He's trying to not fall in love. Um, and then they're on their way to Bucky's through some interesting like covert operations on YouTube. He sent in text saying, "Go to this YouTube video," and then they're talking about where to meet on the YouTube comments, which I thought was interesting.
So, just for context of who Bucky is the person that connects Billy to assassination attempts, and that he sets up jobs for him.
Yeah, he's his brokerage.
Yeah,
kind of
he's
thing.
his go-between. So when he gets to Bucky's, then basically to streamline his time there a little bit, other than one point I will get onto in 1 second, his whole time there is basically prepping to go after Nick, who has not paid him the money that he's due.
Yeah, and it's
So-
not because he owes him money. It's because he thinks of him as a not an honorable person, and he needs to teach him a lesson, like he teaches the three guys a lesson, right? Like he doesn't care about the money. He just wants to teach Nick a
But
lesson.
he
for being a
cares
bad
about the
person.
fact that he hasn't paid him the money. It's not about the money, but it's about the fact he said he's
Yeah, it
going to
was
do
his
something and he
word.
hasn't done it.
Yeah, he went back on his word. Yeah, and he tried to, and in his mind, he's killed Giorgio, who was like his member for years before, and he's stiffed Billy out of a deal as well. So he's a bad
But
guy.
while he's at Bucky's, and me and you have talked about this before, Hodge, in my opinion, the most pivotal conversation in the second, being that the first half of the story is from him leading up to the assassination attempt, And then the second half of the story for me, starting from when Alice gets dropped on his door, when Bucky is seeing how Alice is with him, how she's talking, how she's acting with him. When Bucky sits outside of him and he's saying, you're going to ruin that girl if you take her with you, if you get in a relationship with her, if you love her.
She's gonna follow you no matter what. So
Yeah.
it's your responsibility to make sure that you do
They
right
kind
by
of set the
her
precedent
if
for
you
like
care about
the
her, like that
ending.
kind of thing. Yeah.
That was the most important conversation in the second half of the book for me.
I think what he was trying to do with that as well was like he made that whole book about being about sacrifice. Like it was so important for him to like save this girl because he was almost saving his sister.
But the thing is with that, right, though, he doesn't need to go. He even says it himself, right? Like he can just stop everything with Nick, stop everything with whoever the hell the last guy was, and just him and Alice go somewhere else randomly, whatever, and just live a new life or whatever it is. He knows he can stop, but he wants to teach him a lesson. So that's got nothing to do with being a
It
sacrifice for
wasn't even
Alice
about
or
the money;
anything.
it was all about the honor.
Yeah,
He
but it
kept
was
saying.
nothing. Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that's got nothing to do with Alice. You know what I mean? So why was that so important to him? That's what I didn't understand. Is what drove him. He knew that it could because he used Alice right to help him. He knew she was coming with him no matter what, and he knew he was putting her in danger. But yeah, he did it anyway.
I think as well though, if he didn't kill them, they would have killed him, and I think he knew that as well.
Bloody hell, we're coming
So
up
he
into an
almost had to
hour of
do something.
recording now.
I told you it was gonna be a while.
Yeah. So from where we are now, then he's left Bucky. He's had the conversation. He's planned his trip. He's found out where Nick is.
Well,
He's in his Vegas mansion, isn't he?
Yeah, but
He
before that,
finds
he
out he's got
wrote.
6 million on his head, so he knows it's someone like really big trying to
Yeah.
kill him.
Yeah, he knows there's more to it than just Nick stiffed him. He knows that.
It's a big conspiracy.
Yeah,
Charles
there's a
Jacobs.
deeper conspiracy there, and he also finishes his book. Right, he
Big
finishes his whole army book. He talks about the funhouse, that whole situation where he was supposed to die. Right, like he would have gone first, but Taco said to him,
Yeah.
Billy, you've been going first like every time recently. Let someone else go first or whatever. That guy walks through, loses both his legs, and gets kind of used as like bait to like draw the rest of them in, and it all just goes terribly wrong. And he tries to flank and kills a few, flank in, and they get one of the guys out. But he talks about like Taco, his friend, like just getting murdered in front of him, like shot in his cheek next to him, and on top of his
You
head,
know,
just getting blown off. Like it was pretty brutal
I
that
think
whole scene.
the Nick's mansion scene was like the best part of the book. Like where you knew
I
what
really
a
like that
badass he was
scene.
when he went
Yeah.
there. It was so good.
Because
Like he
before
was
that,
just destroying everyone.
yeah, because before that, I was like, yeah, he's good at sniping, but I didn't like. Then he kind of turned into that like John Wick character, you know what I mean? Where he's just like going crazy, just like close combat now, just knocking people out. I
He
guess he never
shot
really
someone through
fought
the
with
toilet
anyone,
door, man.
and he fell onto
His
the
feet,
chain,
his
and
head
he's
fell
like,
on the shitter, man.
yeah, and he's like, in reality, you can't make some stuff up.
Like he almost thought he was still alive, but he just fucked him up through the door and his head just dropped.
Yeah. So if we talk about that then, so he planned the infiltration of Nick's mansion, right, on Google Maps with Bucky and Alice, and they
Yeah, and he dressed up as a Mexican.
yeah, he dressed up as a Mexican, tried to get away with it, but obviously he can't speak Spanish, so he pretended to be a mute Mexican, and then he got burned as he got into the grounds, the
By
mansion grounds through the service entrance.
Marge.
Yeah, Marge, one of the bodyguards'
She was on
mums.
smoke.
Yeah, she was the only one out there though, right? Which was
She was
interesting.
a,
I
But
know.
she
she
was
might not
aggressive.
have
She
known
was
who
more
he
scary than
was.
anyone else.
No,
But
she knew who he
she
was.
no, she might not have known who he was because look at the guard that walked up to him. He wasn't sure, was he? But she recognised him pretty
She
He
much
was the
kept
one that
straight
served
he
them
away
kept
food, weren't
saying
she?
he
because
kept
they had
That little
previously in the
meal.
book when in the whole build up to the assassination, Nick, the one that hired him, invited him round for dinner, didn't he, to his house? And Marge, unbeknownst to Billy, was serving food at the time. So she
Yeah,
had a
She said,
very good look at
"No,
him
it's
and knew who he
Alaska."
was.
and she didn't get paid. What's his name? When Nick told him to leave, he didn't give her any money, so he knew
She
that
was like,
she was part of the
She
like
was on the payroll, wasn't
she's,
she?
family. Yeah,
She's
she's
an
on the payroll.
employee.
Nick's goon's mom,
Yeah,
like Elvis's mom.
because and it's the same sort of hair, and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
if she didn't have the hat on, I would have maybe come to that conclusion sooner. Because she had like a certain like style of hair that was like similar to her son.
So he comes in
And-
through the service
Yeah, like-
entrance. Go on,
Yeah.
what are you
A
going to
mad receding hairline.
And she ends up becoming the most important. Well, not the most important, but like
say? She ends up
one of the
book, don't
main
she?
bad guys. Like, where did that come? Like,
So
I
he's
wasn't
come in through the
expecting
service
that.
entrance. Marge has recognised him. He's had a fight with Marge. He's knocked her out and then closed the gate and gone in. He comes up to the mansion, goes in, and now we're on to the part you said earlier where he initially confronts a maid as soon as he gets in, but he lets her go, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's well before that the bodyguard as well. He knocked the bodyguard out, left a shotgun. Thought, should I pick the shotgun up? Maybe not.
He killed the bodyguard.
Yeah, he
didn't
shoots and
The,
kills him, doesn't
security
he?
guard shoots him straight in the head.
Oh, he shoots him in. Yeah, he
Yeah.
does shoot him. You're right. Yeah, he shoots him in the
He
where his
didn't
buttons
want
are.
to take that risk.
Yeah, but he didn't get the gun. He left the gun, which was stupid. That was a risky let slide, which was interesting.
I'm surprised he didn't kill Marge. I thought he would have.
He should have.
I think it's just. I don't think he ever kills a woman until.
Oh, there's not a lot of
Yeah.
violence
Very
against women in the book at all, is there?
He said, yeah, he
Yeah, like,
punched.
he-
he
he-
punched
he
Marge
never
or
risked it.
roundhouse kicked her, didn't he? He roundhouse kicked her and was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I never hit woman before."
Yeah, top bins, didn't he? Straight away with him.
Oh, just knocked her straight out, knocked her sombrero off.
Like you said
It's
though,
like a-
like
it's a moral
against
thing.
women, there's no like real violence against women, but obviously like
Yeah.
no death against women. Like obviously he
Yeah, but
punches her,
to
or whatever.
men-
But that's yeah,
But
it's
if you're a
prison
man,
rules,
he'll
isn't
just
it?
smoke you.
But
Any-
actually,
anyone
well,
can get it.
okay. So when he goes down, obviously, first of all, Marge's son comes up to check where the beer is. The game resumes. They're all focused on the game again. Marge's son comes up, and then while he's like looking for the maid, Billy comes up behind him, smacks him as hard as he can in the head, and he's like, "Well, this is different from the movies. In real life,
Yeah, he pistol
people
whips it.
might not get back up." Yeah, and he's like, he could have some brain damage if he's got like a hemorrhage or whatever, or you know he might never wake up again. Who knows? And yeah, he goes down obviously, and there's 3 people there: Nick, 2 bodyguards. You notice there's one missing bodyguard because of a popcorn like and an empty seat. And then but he lets that guy run away, right? Like the accountant guy. Like the
Yeah.
accountant guy.
He's got to choose
stands
though,
up.
isn't he? You're on about when he after he sees the popcorn and
Yeah.
then Nick
He's not
tells
worried
him he's
about him,
got.
I
Well,
guess, yeah.
one of the other ones, then he tells him that he's gone to the toilet. So.
Yeah.
He obviously
pops
knows
one
that
in
the
the
accountant
ankle
isn't a
before.
threat, doesn't he? So he's got to choose at that
Pops the
point
other guy
now.
in the ankle so he can't move.
Yeah, there's a concealed weapon, one of Nick's concealed weapon under the chairs, and he goes to get it and picks it up and then like shoots him in the ankle.
That's after he kills the guy from the toilet. So
Yeah, that's
the
after the guy
accountant
from the toilet,
runs
yeah.
away as Billy walks to the toilet to confront the guy that's in there. He then fakes out opening the door. The guy shoots through, and Billy instantly shoots through the door. Meanwhile, the accountant's got away and run up the stairs, but he's not important now because he's gone. He's a pussy. He's gone. And then
But the thing is though, as well though, he says like he's like telling Nick to tell them like I'm in the army, like I know how to
That
shoot.
whole
Like
scene with Nick.
he
is-
should know, right? Like, dude, this guy's been in the army. He's been clear. Well, he obviously doesn't know what he did in the army, but he's been clearing.
The whole
the
scene where like Nick
Houdin
is
or whatever.
shaking and stuff. He's like he's so happy that like he can tell that Nick is like shitting himself. It makes him so
Yeah.
proud.
Nick
Because it's
Shaker.
a complete
also, like,
180. It's
when
a
they're
complete
saying to
180.
him like we underestimated you, like before you were this like slow person, but in reality you've been playing us all along when we thought we was playing you.
No, but Giorgio told Nick this guy is smarter than
Yeah,
he
but they
seems,
didn't want to believe it.
and he
Nick
was like,
knows
"Nah,
best,
he's
don't he?
not." Yeah, because Nick.
This is when he
Yeah,
gets
go
like back, like he gets him to get like back in contact with him, like when he finds out he hasn't been assassinated, Piggy.
Yeah. Later on, though, as well, when he's talking to Nick on the phone, he says Nick goes to say something. He's like, "Billy, I need to tell you something," and he's like, "I don't give a fuck." Hangs up the phone. I
He
wonder
just
what
he
that.
just becomes a badass.
I wonder what he was gonna say though. Probably nothing important, but I would be like, he could have something interesting to
Yeah,
say.
that was interesting.
Like, you
I
don't
think
know.
he's gonna apologise.
Yeah, he could have, but he could
So
have had some like intel.
after he's killed the guy through the toilet. He's gone back to the front room, and Nick's no longer there. He's run out the back, and he's trying to get into his safe room, isn't he? But he's
Oh wait,
messing
hang on a
up,
minute.
putting the code
He
in the door.
forgets, the
No,
code.
we missed something though. The guy he shot in the ankle first when he first got in there. He was like, "Don't test me," and he shot him in the ankle, and then he pulled the gun out.
Yeah,
And when he come back after killing the guy in the toilet, he pulled the gun on him, and he's like, "Oh, you had a gun hiding, you fucker!" And he shot him and killed him, and he was like, "You could have lived."
and
But
then
no.
he hears Nick out the back trying to get into his safe room,
Yeah.
but he's messing up the code.
And he's like, "I blanked."
And then when he asks him what the code is, he can just say it straight away.
I was really
Yeah.
surprised he let him live, though. But he knew at that point, didn't he? He was starting to unravel that there's someone above you here.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
someone else
That's
to
what
this.
he extracts that
So
information.
he needed him, really, didn't he, to get
And
to
he
the
wanted
higher
the
up
money
fish.
as well. Like
Because-
the
I
money
think he
wasn't
cared
super
about the money.
important. No, it wasn't super important,
just
but
for
he wanted
Alice.
it for Bucky and Alice. Yeah. And so he was like, "Oh, you can still give me the money," and also he used him to get in contact with Giorgio, who would get in contact with
Yeah.
the main villain of
It
the
would
whole
set up
book,
the yeah.
the
Because
man
he ended
behind the
up needing
curtains.
both of them in the end. So once he's done that, then he hasn't killed Nick. He's let him go. He said to him, "Pay me my money, and I'm going to use you now." Then
Well, he told him
Marge
to
has
stay
come
there
into
for
the
an hour,
house.
right?
Marge
He
has
told him,
come
go in
in.
the safe house.
Yeah. And then
Stay for an hour.
he hears Marge upstairs with her son, who he's pistol whipped, who he thinks he's killed.
Yeah, she's crying over his body, and then he goes to get the shotgun that's on the floor, trying to not make a noise, and then as he's going for the shotgun, he's like, "Oh fuck!" He feels like prickling on his neck or whatever, and he's like, "Nick got out."
He
But
does
he
her
would have
again.
heard him. But then he stands up and he's like, oh, "Okay, Nick's not behind me. It's fine. Don't worry." And he stands up and his knees pop, and she's like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, and then she's like, "I'm gonna come for you," and like he's like, "I believe you." She's like, "I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna fucking kill you." And he's like, "You know what? I believe you. I believe you." But he doesn't take her out, man. He should have took her out. If he believes that she's gonna come after him, should have took him out, man.
It's a whole
From
violence
this
against
bit to,
women
like,
thing, though. Again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From this bit to like the ending, it happens quite quick. Like from this bit to killing
Yeah, it does.
the main
But
bad
then
guy is like
going
Yeah,
back
there's
to
a lot
his
of
whole
rush to me.
lucky
That's what I like.
charm things, in the car that he drove in, he's got that picture of that
Yeah.
little girl, the neighbour, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's another lucky charm, and he forgets that on the dashboard as he leaves.
Yeah. So he basically has it in the area. So he gets out of that situation fine and alive and nothing happened bad. And then he leaves it there, obviously. Now he's got no lucky charms, right? All he's got is his laptop, which is obviously he leaves in the motel before he goes to confront Clark or whatever his name was.
and this Clark guy is such a dirty scumbag.
Yeah, I was
Deserve
he's
the
literally
worst
like
death.
he's like the Epstein freaking island kind of thing, innit? Just I
The
don't know,
scene
man.
with like him and Thingy wasn't like like it didn't really last that long. It was just they went from Nick's mansion to back to Bucky's,
Yeah.
and it just happened like quick.
Yeah, that part. That's what I was saying. I thought like that part was really rushed. Like I was just like, I feel like, but then again, if it wasn't rushed,
There's
what would
no
have
build up.
happened? They
Yeah,
would
it
have,
would have dragged. It would have been
it
more of
would
the
have
same.
dragged because it would have been the same thing again. Because he's already done that part with Nick, right? That whole setup for Nick, so he could do the whole setup
Yeah.
again with a few changes, or he could just change it up and just go straight
I think
into it.
Yeah, because that was a good chunk of the book while he was at Bucky, setting it up, going out
Yeah.
to the cabin, writing his story, there running around town. So
Oh,
from
we
there,
missed the
then,
supernatural part in
I
in
I don't feel like that had a
Mounties.
big part because we don't understand like,
yeah, we
Yeah,
don't
so
really know
basically,
too much
well,
about it.
the
Quickly going
multiverse.
over it, the building, the hotel in the on the background, I think that's something to do with The Shining. Like there was something about a hotel in The Shining. I don't know. So I think that's what happened there.
Just
That's how
explain
it got
like
burnt
how he
down.
gets there, like when he's at Bucky's the first time.
Alice goes there and sees it. He doesn't go there, does he?
No, she tells him. So when he's at
She tells him
Bucky's,
about
She
it.
thinks she's
she
seen the
goes for a
hotel.
walk. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a cabin. She goes for a walk, yeah, well, to let them talk. And she stumbles across this like haunted this place, this big open land, right, where a hotel used to be, and it got burnt down for some mysterious reason, and apparently it's haunted, people say. They see it and
No,
it
when
vanishes.
he says he ends up throwing the picture off like the mountain or whatever. I wanted to see like the end scenes when like I think he's like Alice has become like the writer now. If that picture was like back up in there, because that would have been interesting.
Yeah,
But
that whole
that's like
picture
the
thing was
end of
weird
it.
to me as well, but I think that's another nod to The Shining, I don't know. But
Yeah, it's
it
not.
like
We ain't read it, so
some like
we
supernatural
don't get
kind
it.
of weird thing, yeah. So I mean, anyone who's seen that,
So
hopefully that
from
was a
that, then
cool scene.
covering that Easter egg, after the whole things happened at Nick's mansion, then he's found out that Clark is the main dog that's ordered the hit to begin with. Now he's used Alice, isn't he? Because he finds out
Yeah,
that he's a nonce.
Well, he finds out why
yeah,
everything happened from Nick. Nick tells him everything.
yeah.
Nick tells him, look, this is what happened, right? And he tells Alice what happened. So this is where we kind of figure out what happened, right? Like, so basically, this guy is a nonce. He his son was supposed to take over the company, and actually, when you know this part more, I kind of
His
can't
son was like
remember.
using some like evidence against his dad in trouble, so he could take over the company. So then
And get
he
complete control,
organized the
right? Yeah.
assassin. Yeah, he got the assassin to try and kill his son. But then
Yeah.
his son had that like the assassin who killed his son had that information.
Yeah,
So
he
that's why he didn't
found.
want to take a risk with keeping Billy alive. That's why Billy
Yeah,
had to
I
go
remember
in.
now. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, yeah, like what were you saying? Like when he killed his son, the assassin that Billy killed, he realized who he was killing, and he found like where he was, like basically blackmail on the president of whatever, right? So he wanted to tie that loose end
Well,
up with Billy, and he wanted to tie Billy up that loose end because he already got screwed over by the first guy. He didn't want that to happen again. So that's why Billy got stiffed in
I
the
think
job.
once they eventually got to this Clark guy, like everything's happening, like stuff. When Alice was the one that actually killed him, I think that's when he realised that he has to
It's
leave her because
Alice that
now he
ordered the
knows that
hit,
he's
though,
going
isn't
to
it?
ruin her.
Basically, because she said like he has to pay the ultimate price, like he needs to die.
But I think Billy agreed. Billy wanted to kill him,
Yeah,
though.
Billy knew. If Billy didn't kill him, he'd kill Billy.
Yeah. Or Billy would kill him. But like that first part, when they went up to so obviously Giorgio brokered the deal, right, with that Jude woman or whatever her name was. Um, they got the address. He agreed to pay for using her,
For Billy
and
in
then
disguise, just quickly, so you know what
As
I'm
that
talking
woman's
about.
cousin, and
Giorgio has brokered a deal for Billy in disguise. Obviously, they don't know it's Billy to bring an underage girl, a young girl, 13, 14, whatever it was, to Clark for him to nonce.
yeah, he's the pimp. Billy's playing the pimp,
Yeah.
basically the role of the pimp.
So he takes her
And
to his
before
mansion.
that, I was just say before that, the reason why we know he's a nonce obviously is because he was having sex with girls like 13, 14 or whatever. And then one time he had sex with a girl, he wanted a girl that was 10 years old because he wanted to try it because he said he was drunk or some shit. He got drunk and wanted to
it was
try a
weird, wasn't
10-year-old.
it?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck, man? But yeah, and then, yeah, so they go there, they're in the car and they're getting frisked by the security guard. And he's like watching on the security camera and he's like, zooming in on Alice and telling her to like lift her dress up and do this like gross
Pretty
stuff.
weird, man.
So we just know this guy's an absolute creep and just needs to like die, right? Like just like the guys who raped Alice, like you kind of you're kind of like
They've got to be
wanting something
killed, man.
bad to happen to this guy, like you know what I mean? Like you're on their side, even though they're doing a bad thing. At the end of the day, it's to a bad person who's done like terrible things, right? So it's like something you're kind of like rooting for the protagonist of the story, Billy, to do.
Yeah, obviously you want the nonce to die, don't you? So after this is all happened on security camera, you see him get real protective, don't you, and step in against the whole like, stop this now. That's it. I'll take her away. That's enough. And then they panic and say, okay, bring her in. And then the whole part, just to streamline this part, he goes into the mansion. He kills the first guy that comes out, which is Clark's assistant, because he doesn't have security at the mansion. And then
that's another thing to say though. He doesn't have security because he just thinks that he's the king of the world and no one would
He's
ever like
invulnerable.
try him.
Yeah.
Like no one would ever like double cross him. Like when he finds out that he's being like conned, basically, he's like, well, how could this ever happen? Like, what the fuck? How could you con me?
So he's killed the assistant. He's gone in. Clark's seen him and panicked and gone into his room, but they followed him. And then ultimately, Alice has took the first shot, isn't she? On his shot him in the stomach.
Yeah,
And then while he's
she killed
bleeding
him.
out, Billy shoots him in the head.
Yeah, he's like, why did you kill me? Like, I can't believe you shot me. Like, what the fuck did you expect to happen? Like, what the hell?
Billy,
that was
Billy
fine.
kills her. They go outside, and then this is like the final sort of act of the book, innit? The wind down for the book. So Billy's now gone outside, and as they're in the car driving away, he's remembered that he's left his gun on the floor, innit? And his prints are on it.
His gun got taken by the security guard at the entrance and said you can have it back when you come back.
Yeah. So he's left his gun with the security guard. Well, not even the security guard, the assistant, isn't it?
Just left it on the floor, isn't
The
it?
first person. But I don't know if there's another security guard or if it's just on the comms that he was talking.
By the end of the book, I swear he just leaves it on the floor, doesn't he?
Yeah, he leaves it on the floor by the gate.
Does he? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe that's
He
weird.
says just
though. Why
leave it
would he
there, it
leave
should be safe.
So then he jumps out the truck to go and get his gun, doesn't he? And then Marge...
Okay, so the reason why she's after him is because obviously her son is now like, was he in a coma or did he says, I know he was like screaming, like
He's
he's
like
fucked up. He's
in
basically a
life support,
vegetable.
isn't it?
But he told Nick with the rest of the money to pay it to Marge, didn't he?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wanted to do goodbye
Because he felt
felt
bad for what he did.
200 grand extra and then give him.
Yeah.
So Marge has come out of the bushes in camo, isn't she? And as soon as he's seen her, she's brought a gun up. He brings his gun up and shoots. She shoots at the same time. He headshots her. And then as she's gone down, he feels like a nick in his side, doesn't he? He doesn't think he's been hit at first, but then he finds out he has because he sees his side.
And this part I really like, this part of the story, because it kind of like...
Yeah, so he's in the... Where it doesn't start out bad, does it? And then he gets in the truck, they drive, they get to a motel, and then this is where it sort of spirals, doesn't it? Because the story of his life that he is writing, it carries on to the end that he is... They pull up at a motel on the way back. Billy knows that he's obviously injured, but they sort him out. And then initially you think it's ended when he walks away. He leaves Alice because he doesn't want to ruin her. And then
in the morning he leaves. He says we're gonna wake up at
Just
this
leaves
time,
a
and
note.
he.
so it's the hero's end, isn't it? It's like he's walked away. He started his new life.
Yeah, he's walked into the sunset.
It's a good ending, man.
Yeah, gave
I
Alice
prefer
the
that ending
money.
to the actual ending.
Yeah, he tells Alice what to do. Go to Bucky's. Bucky's a bad guy. Don't stay with him for too long, and then all this other stuff.
But King
it
says
turns out-
low jokes.
No, that didn't happen.
Writing the
Well, it did
story.
happen. That did happen, but he never walked away. He couldn't walk away because he was too fucked up. And then she started taking him. She started driving because he was infected or whatever from the.
So his
bullet
wounds
wound.
just got
The bullet
worse
was
and
still
worse
stuck,
and
yeah.
worse. The
The
close
bullet was still
because they were
stuck inside him.
2,000 miles from Bucky's, weren't they? And that's where they were going back to. So as they're doing the drive, he's just started to deteriorate and he's getting worse and worse and worse and worse along the way. And then near to Bucky's, like 1,000 miles away, 800 miles away,
Yeah,
whatever it is,
going out,
he ends up dying in the back of the cab, and Alice drives Billy in the cab back to Bucky's, and they end up burying him at Bucky's. And then Alice is obviously that's what really happened, but that's not the ending to the story that she wrote.
Yeah. Well, before that though, he's like he's dying in the Walmart parking lot, right? And he's like his last words are talking to Alice, like telling
He
her
gives her
what
that
to
little
do.
speech that
Yeah,
they do include.
he gives her a speech, which is super like teary-eyed, like kind of shit, and then he comes up with his last words, "I love you, Ronnie," which was kind of like interesting to
He's
me.
like
Like,
he was making her feel guilty for killing that guy, even though he was like a complete scumbag. He was like, I know it
no,
feels
I don't
bad
think.
and it should feel bad, so never do it again. Like
Yeah,
he put the point across that like you should feel like shit for killing someone.
yeah. He's like, these scars never like fully heal. Like they'll be with you for the rest of the life. Like, and then yeah. So then he dies, and his last breath, he says, "I love you, Ronnie," which is the girl from his childhood
Um,
in the House of Paint. But and then Alice says like, he's like, "Ronnie, is that you? I love you," or whatever. And then Alice pretends to be Ronnie, like, "Yeah, it's me. I love you too." And he's like, "Let's go find some apples in the basement," or whatever he says. So he's just thinking back at his time with Ronnie, the girl he loved when he was a kid. So does that mean that he didn't love Alice, or he did? I don't know.
it kind of hit that annoys me that I wish at the end like somehow like there's a little bit extra where his story got published.
No, but they said he can't
I
publish
would have
his
loved to see
story.
it.
Well, yeah, they
I
said
feel
it's
like
going to
they
have
could
to
to change.
change.
He's dead though.
Because Bucky said, as
They could
long as
just
you
change
leave
his
me
name.
out of it, didn't he? He said, you
No,
leave
he
me out
said
of it,
Bucky
I'll
Yeah.
at
change
the
my
end.
name.
No, at the end she says, "I can't publish this, can I?" And Bucky says, "No, probably best not." And then he says, "If you ever heard, it's like this guy's story." And she's like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Exactly. You don't know who he is because he never told his story. He went onto a plane, hijacked it, got money for it, jumped off the plane with a parachute, and no one
DB
ever saw him
Cooper.
again." Yeah.
That
DB
is yeah,
Cooper.
DB Cooper.
So
He's a
yeah.
badass.
The more we've
Um,
talked about, now we've talked out the whole book and we've all discussed it, I feel like I like it more now than I did when I initially finished it.
We still missed the part. We haven't finished it though. Like, so she goes obviously to Bucky, tells him the story. This part was weird to me though. Am I tripping, or did she say to Bucky like that, like when the last part of the story is being told, and Bucky says, "Well, that's not how it went, is it?" And then it switches, and it's the real
The,
story happens now.
yeah,
But
the first ending was such a full
Bucky
good
helped
ending.
bury. Bucky helped Alice bury Billy when she come like to
Yeah,
his house.
Yeah.
you didn't get that until right at the very end. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
right. Because they talk about his grave outside, don't they?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. Is it me, or did Bucky say, "Well, that's not what happened," is it? When she's
I
talking,
like
when
the end
he's
though.
reading the story, because he's reading the story on the extra part which Alice wrote, and she's like, "Is
Does
it
it
like,
sound like him? Yeah,
yeah? Does
yeah.
it sound like him?" And then he's like,
No
"Yeah, I
one.
can't tell where you picked her book
Obvious.
from."
No, because he asked her, he said, how did he really die then?
Yeah, but
Don't
he
he?
knows how he really died.
Well, no,
Yeah.
well, does he? You don't
Well, he
know, do
knows that
you?
he knows that he's
I think
dead because
he
he
said
helped
she wasn't
bury her.
talking that much, was she?
Yeah,
She
and
was like most of the
obviously
way, so
he's read
she
the
probably didn't
story
say
that
much.
she's written and it's a hero story. So I think he's asking her at
And he's
that
like,
point, how does he
Yeah,
really
maybe
die
I
then?
just missed
how,
like
yeah.
I thought he was being literal, like, "Oh, but that's not how it actually happened, is it? Like, tell me the truth." But maybe he just meant
You
like
don't really know the
the truth.
timeline though, do you? Between when she got back, when he was buried, when
Yeah.
she
There's a
finished the
few days. I
story.
think.
Like,
Yeah, but
was
you don't know the
did
timeline.
she finish that story in a motel straight after he died? And then did they bury him straight away? She got Bucky to read the story and then he asked her? Like, you don't really know the timeline, do you?
It would have been quick because he would have rotted, obviously. Like he put something on his body or whatever so he wouldn't rot and smell in the summer, and he wouldn't get
I
taken
like
by the
how
animals.
she was saying like now she's a writer, like
Yeah,
in her
I
world,
really like
anything
that
can be
part.
there. Like she can write, like if that thing stays on his grave, it's gonna be there forever because she's the one who wrote it. So
Yeah,
whatever she writes can be happening.
she put the book
Like
there and was
it's a
like, "I'm
good
gonna
way.
leave this book and I'm gonna think that it's gonna stay here, even if it gets blown away down the mountain or whatever." And then like, I really like that as well. She's like, "I can write the story however I want to. Like, you don't have to have died back then. You could
Yeah.
have walked
No one
off
can write
and you
her
could have
life for her.
lived."
It's her own
Yeah.
choice.
And I really like the fact that she obviously really like loved and cared for Billy, and she become what like he wanted to be, right? Like he wanted to be a writer, and now
Yeah.
she's pursuing
He
that and like
inspired us so
becoming a writer.
much.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool, like little ending to it. I really like the ending, man. I really like the whole. The only like there was one little slow part before like he went to Bucky's, which I thought, but even that I didn't think was that bad because I was expecting it to be there. So like I expected it to be a little bit slow after the climax of the first part of the story, but other than that, I felt like it was good all the way through. I felt
Yeah.
like there wasn't anything that wasn't. The only thing that wasn't needed was the whole like supernatural part in the mountain, but even that was to like Stephen King fans. That's what that part was for. Like it
Overall,
wasn't for me.
I'd probably rate it a 4 out of 5, 3.5.
Yeah. I think to me as a 5-star, I didn't really think there was anything wrong with it. I mean, I will say Marge just popping out of a fucking bush in camo
But
was a bit
it wasn't really
convenient.
her that killed him. He kind of killed himself because even Bucky said to Alice that if he really wanted to, he could have got the help to get like fixed up. Like Bucky could have sorted it.
But
Yeah.
So although she
ultimately,
was the one who dealt like
Marge
the lethal blow,
dealt the
he was
shot,
the one
didn't
who
she?
killed himself.
And also,
Yeah,
I
like
think
he was the one who killed himself.
throughout the whole book, right, he's constantly at a war with himself for being a bad guy, but not liking bad guys, right? And thinking bad guys need to pay. And he constantly like tells like Giorgio, like, I'll see you in hell, like we'll have a
Yeah.
beer in hell or whatever, because he knows who he is, right? So I'm pretty sure he's okay with being killed by Marge because he is a bad guy, right? Like he killed all those people
Yeah.
that probably didn't need to die. Like he put her son into like this coma or whatever, even though he was probably a piece of shit. Like he doesn't know his story. He said that he didn't know like everything that he's done. Like he doesn't know if he's a truly bad person or not. But he knows himself that he himself is a bad person. So I thought that was just like part of it. Like he was happy to like die because like he knew he was a piece of shit.
For me, it was a 4 out of 5, purely because in my head, in my opinion, I wish it wasn't Marge that killed him. I wish something else happened. I don't know what I want to happen, but
Yeah, I preferred the
just
original ending.
Marge, yeah, like the hero send off, and
But
I
and it
preferred
ended
that so
there.
much.
I
I
felt
get
like
what it was meant to mean, but
yeah, I feel like the hero send off part though was that part was like ending Alice's the whole journey and like her becoming like who she is now, like she's a writer now and all this stuff. And I feel like that was all part of like that her story. You know what I mean? Like the whole him dying
Yeah, I could
part.
see that. For me, anyway, I'd rate it for 4 star purely because I didn't like the fact Marge killed him. So
The only
final
part
roundup then. What are you rating it, Hodge? 4 out of 5.
3.5 to 4 star.
What are you giving it, Mike?
I'm a 5 for me. Like I said, I had no issues with any of it. The only small issue was just Marge just conveniently popping out of nowhere in the bush. But other than that, I didn't have any issues with it. So 5 out of 5 for me.
4 from me. Right, okay, we're at an hour and a half now, so I think that's a good place to end it. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for
Yeah.
everyone to listening. If you've made it this far, especially, thank you very much. And we will see you next week for another video. See you later. Goodbye.
Boy.